Moving into a new house after my divorce felt like hitting the reset button. The chaos of my old life, endless arguments, lawyers, long days spent alone, was left behind in the city. Rosewood Lane, with its neat houses, perfectly trimmed lawns, and quiet streets, felt like the kind of place where life was orderly, predictable. I needed that. The day I moved in, the sun was shining, and I was surrounded by moving boxes when the neighbors started to show up. Carol from across the street brought a pie, the elderly Suttons came with a potted plant, and Greg, a few doors down, invited me to a barbecue he was hosting. It was suburban life at its finest, everyone eager to welcome the new guy. A bit much, but after months of isolation, it was refreshing. Everyone greeted me, except for the people in the house next door. Their place stood out. 2 stories like mine, but older, with peeling paint and an overgrown lawn that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. Their windows were always dark, even in the middle of the day, with the curtains drawn tight. No flowers, no welcome mat, nothing. In all the time I'd spent unpacking, I hadn't seen a single person come in or out. At Greg's barbecue a few days later, I asked about them. "Oh, them?" Greg said, scratching his chin. "Yeah, they're kinda strange. Don't see 'em much." His wife, Marina, chimed in. "We've lived here 5 years, and I've only seen them twice. They just keep to themselves. You probably won't even know they're there." The conversation moved on. I couldn't stop thinking about that house. Everyone acted like it was no big deal, just some reclusive neighbors. Every time I looked over at it, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I tried to forget about it. People have their quirks, right? A few nights later, I heard something strange. I had the windows open to let in the cool night air when I heard faint talking. It was coming from next door. At first, I thought it was just someone walking by. The voices had this odd rhythmic quality. It didn't sound like normal conversation, more like chanting, almost in a language I couldn't place. It was soothing in a way that felt wrong. I told myself it was late, probably just some night owls. I rolled over, trying to push it out of my mind. The next night, it happened again. Louder this time. I got out of bed and stood by the window, peering through the blinds. Their yard was dark, just the faint glow of a streetlight catching the edges of their overgrown lawn. I couldn't see anyone. Just those voices, that strange, staccato rhythm that made my skin crawl. I watched and waited. Nothing revealed itself. Eventually, the voices faded, and the night went quiet again. After that, the voices became a regular thing. Not every night, and never at the same time. Sometimes they were soft, like a murmur in the wind. Other times they were loud and urgent, always with that same unnerving rhythm. I thought about going over, knocking on the door. Every time I worked up the nerve, something stopped me. The thought of those voices, that house, it filled me with this creeping dread I couldn't shake. I didn't want to know what was happening over there. I didn't want to get involved. Then, one night, the voices came right up to my window. It was past midnight, and I was half asleep when I heard a low hum. Not the voices this time, but a muttering sound, like someone was standing just outside. I froze, straining to listen. My heart pounded in my chest. I crept to the window, barely daring to breathe. The yard was dark, as always. No sign of anyone. The hum was unmistakable, low and garbled, like something just out of reach. I wanted to look, really look. Fear held me in place. Something told me that whatever was out there, I didn't want to see it. I backed away, returning to bed with my heart still racing, pulling the covers up like a child afraid of the dark. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, everything was normal. People walked their dogs, waved hello, kids played in the street. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd heard. The hum, those voices, whatever was going on next door, it wasn't just odd neighbors who kept to themselves. Something was wrong. I could feel it, I got home one night with my brother and dad after going out to watch the new IT movie. This was just a couple days ago. I got settled down in my house. My mom asked me how it was, and I said, "Scary." "Good. Then the movie did its job," I replied. I go upstairs and start brushing my teeth and took a shower and washed my face before sitting down to watch the national news on CTV. Just another day of illegal things. People in power doing bad things. The usual. I got pretty tired, almost falling asleep on the couch, which I never usually do. But recently, as a first-year uni student, I've been getting tired earlier, and as a result, having to go to bed earlier as I wake up. Well, you get the idea. I say goodnight to my mom, who's out cold on the couch right next to me, give her a hug, and off I went. I went upstairs, got into my room, and did a little surfing on the web. I can do that without having a rough sleep. But while I was surfing the web, I heard my doorknob rattle like someone was trying to be goofy by moving it back and forth. I said, "Come in," but was greeted with silence. "Hello?" I opened the door. Nothing. I thought it was strange, and maybe my brother was playing a prank on me or anyone in the house, all 4 other people for that matter. But after asking everyone, I was greeted with a, "Meh, I don't know." I went back upstairs to my room and continued watching the video I was watching before the incident, when again, it happened. Louder, and for about twice as long. Now I was freaked out. I wasn't sure what the hell was going on, and so I went out yet again to investigate, because none of that can happen, right? Ghosts aren't real, neither are monsters, unless you look towards the fossil fuel industry or other planet-damaging corporations, that is. I asked my sister jokingly, "What the fuck was that? Am I gonna die?" "Probably," she replied. I thought I was just tired, and basically just ignored it, and went to bed. There was a predicted thunderstorm that night, and so I heard the rain going, pit-pat, pit-pat, as it started to come down as I went to bed. That kinda soothed me, but I still couldn't stop thinking about the It movie. Probably didn't help, not gonna lie. Time passes, and it's in the middle of the night, technically early morning. It's 3 a.m., and the rain is still coming down hard, but it's a little warm, and I'm sweating in my room with short PJs and my usual bed setup. I keep the duvet on for the obvious reason of maximum monster protection all year round. I think to myself, why the fuck am I sweating so damn much? Like, is my dad that cheap that he can't keep the house at 23 anymore? Jesus Christ. But then, like a scripted movie, it happened again. The doorknob. I was in a really comfortable position trying to cool down as this happened. Arms out of the sheets, and cold side of the pillow and everything. I was sure that time it was real, because I was at least partially rested. The night continued on, and I eventually just got so tired an hour later that it did not matter to me what would happen while I fall asleep, because my body, after 3 hours of traveling just to get to school the day before, and a pretty bad sleep the night before this, watching a movie and working 8 hours from 8 to 5 on that very day, and just being stressed out of all the schoolwork I have, I just let go. Whatever happens, happens. There was and still is no point of worrying about things that you can't control. Naturally fell into babysitting around the age of 14. Through friends and family, I got leads for babysitting to score some cash, which definitely beat having to work at a restaurant. The job had its ups and downs, but overall, it wasn't a bad gig at all. Yet, as many good experiences as I had, they were all eclipsed by one night. A new family in town talked to my dad at work, and it turned out that they needed a babysitter. I happily took the job and found myself watching their 10-year-old boy a couple of weeks later. There was nothing out of the ordinary about the family themselves. They were the model citizens of suburban America, complete with the white picket fence and blue shutters. Nothing about their house was strange or even unique. Their son Avery was very mild-mannered and polite. Even their car was basic. Not that these were bad things, but I expected it to be a very boring night. What I did not expect was the uncomfortable, inexplicable feeling that I got when I set foot in the house. A chill ran through me, but there was no draft. I rubbed my arms as I gazed at their staircase as we passed. They gave me a brief tour of the house before they left a note of instructions and all the usual information I expected from a job. While trying to figure out what was making me so uneasy about the place, I noticed something about their basement door when I passed it. A padlock was placed on the door, along with a deadbolt in place. "Any questions?" the father asked, as my mind was pulled out of my curiosity. "No, sir. Everything looks great." So they left, and Avery and I played some games before I made dinner. A couple of times, I thought I heard Avery call me into the den. Both times, I found him sitting on the couch in what most recognize as the TV zombie state. He denied having called me, and I went back to making dinner. After the third time, I told Avery it wasn't funny and that he should stop. "I'm not doing anything. I'm just watching TV." His voice went to that higher tone of pleading, sounding desperate for me to believe him. "Avery, I know it's my first time, and sometimes you want to test things out, but I'm trying to get dinner ready, so if you call me again, I'm not checking on you, okay?" I didn't say anything. The child glared at the TV with a pouting face, and I began to feel bad. As many times as I've heard lies, I was starting to sense that he was telling the truth. So what was I hearing? "Hey, it's fine. I'm not mad." "Promise?" Avery turned his head back towards me, seeming to test if I was the one fibbing now. "How about I let you stay up a little later if we forget about it?" "Do you really promise?" Pinky promise. With our contractual pinkies interlocked, spirits were raised again, and I was able to finish dinner. Although I didn't finish without hearing Avery's voice calling me once more. I ignored it, and when Avery didn't mention it at dinner, I figured it was him fooling around again. The whole time we chatted as we ate, I couldn't help but feel that something was not right about this house. As hard as I tried to not look, my eyes kept diverting to the heavy padlock and chain on the basement door. Curiosity got the best of me, and as we were cleaning up, I couldn't help but ask, "So, Avery, what's the deal with the basement door?" "What do you mean?" His words did not match his demeanor. It was obvious he didn't make eye contact as he forced his sentence out. "Come on, you know what I mean. The padlock, chain, and deadbolt. Y'all have dangerous chemicals down there?" Avery's face grew paler, and he stared at the wall for a moment. "Hey, it's okay. You don't have to tell me. I didn't mean to. Dad said no one can talk about it anymore." This really threw me off, and I couldn't possibly finish my sentence now. A thick veil of tension materialized between us. "So you guys aren't allowed to talk about it?" Avery shook his head. "Ah, okay. That's cool. No big deal." It was nothing but a big deal. Was their dad doing something illegal down there? Or was it something strange that no one could do anything about it? Maybe their dad was in denial about something going on. There were way too many questions going through my head now. "Hey, how about we put on a movie?" "Yeah, sure. What am I saying? Everyone likes movies, right?" Now excited, we decided on a fun movie that quickly pulled our minds away from the mysterious basement door. Well, that's not entirely true. Maybe Avery was distracted, but it was killing me. As we ate popcorn, I couldn't help but watch Avery, wondering what was going on in that little head of his. Was there something awful going on in the house, and there was nothing I could do to stop it? Or maybe the dad was just, "Stop," I told myself inwardly. Mulling over it all endlessly was not doing myself any favors. So the movie ended, and I ushered the drifting child to his bed. Now, The house was all to myself until 12, so I had a good 3.5 hours to myself. Immediately, I began texting my friend to tell her all about the weird experience I was having that night. She dismissed it, saying that I was getting spooked by a new place. This annoyed me to no end. I'd been at bigger, way creepier looking houses, but never got weird vibes like this. Then, I heard it. "Stephanie." I went instantly still and listened intently. "You didn't hear that, Steph. Just keep texting your friend and..." "Stephanie..." There was no mistaking it this time. It was definitely coming from the basement. The acoustics couldn't have been from Avery upstairs. The voice sounded like a little girl's. In fact, I'm not even sure he could make his voice like that anyway. Slowly, I stood up from the couch and approached the door. Maybe like earlier, I was just hearing things. Maybe being creeped out by the house was starting to mess with my head. That made sense, right? "Stephanie." I jumped back from the door, almost wetting myself in the process. There was no way I could dismiss it as anything else now. There was a little girl's voice coming from the basement. "Hello?" I responded. I couldn't keep my voice from shaking. "Is this Stephanie?" Yes, it's Stephanie. Can you help me?" "Who are you? Why are you locked in the basement?" "My name is Meredith Rosenberg. They're kept me locked up for a long time now. The police were almost onto them, and that's why they moved. Can you get me out?" A cold shock washed over me and made it hard to respond. Was I actually babysitting for a family that kept a little girl prisoner? "Oh my God, how long have you been locked up with them?" "Ever since I can remember." I felt somehow hot and cold at the same time and wanted to throw up. This all made sense now with what Avery had told me. Of course, his father didn't want him talking about the door. "I just need to find the keys and I can..." "They're hidden in the garage underneath the metal shelf. It's inside a magnetic key holder." "Okay, just hold tight." In a panic to free the poor girl, I darted into the garage and began feeling the space underneath the bottom shelf. And sure enough, there was a magnetic key holder there. Running back, I popped the key holder open and began to insert the key into the padlock. "Did you find it?" "Yes, sweetie, I'm almost there." "Oh, please hurry. Sometimes they come home early." This sent me into even more of a rush, and I barely managed to fumble the key into the padlock. I finally heard the successful click of the padlock, pulled the chain off, and slid the deadbolt to the right. "I'm coming, Meredith. Hold on." I turned the doorknob and threw open the door, only to be met with darkness. Now, full of adrenaline, my hands felt around for the light switch. Finally finding my purchase, I flicked the light on which lit up most of the stairs. "Meredith?" I called out. Unless I was remembering it wrong, it sounded like her voice was just on the other side of the door a minute ago. In fact, it was quite strange that she wasn't waiting for me at the top of the stairs. Wouldn't you immediately run out of a basement that you were locked in for God knows how long? "I'm down here," the little girl's voice called out. Judging from the distance, it sounded like she was calling from somewhere at the bottom of the stairs. My brain suddenly began piecing all the details of this interaction together, and the idea of going down into the basement became absolutely terrifying. "Meredith, you can come up now. The door's open." I couldn't hide the tremor in my voice. Why I was scared of a little girl was beyond me, but much like the house itself, something felt very wrong here. "I hurt my leg. Ow! When you said you were getting the key, I went back down to get some of my things and got hurt." "Ah." Her sounds of pain filled me with sorrow, but an invisible force was holding me back from taking another step into that basement. "Can you move? Maybe pull yourself up on the railing?" "I can't. It hurts too bad." "Okay, sweetie. What's wrong? Won't you help me?" It's just really dark down there, and I don't want to get hurt too. Is there any way you can get to the stairs? Any way at all?" I try to sit up, but my shoulder hurts too much. I thought you said your leg got hurt." The words hung in the air like a noose. It was only after I said it that I realized there was several things seriously wrong about all of this. A question popped into my head I didn't even have time to think about until now. How did she know where the padlock key was? A deathly silence took up the space between me and wherever this girl was. It was a standoff, and I couldn't think of anything else to say. There were questions I could ask her to figure out what was happening, but I felt that her answers weren't going to be honest. Perhaps at this point, the truth was too frightful to know. "Meredith, are you still there?" It was a stupid question, but it was the only thing my mind could conjure. The additional silence only unnerved me, so I decided to try and get a better look. Fishing my phone out of my pocket, I clicked on the flashlight. It didn't do me any good because of the awful range, so I did the one thing I'd already told myself not to do. I took a step forward. Maybe it was the angle of the stairs or the lighting, but that one step gave me more information than I ever wanted to know. I caught a better view of the bottom step, which was essentially a ledge into a black abyss. Something looked different on this step, but it took a second to register what it was. The step was wet, a pool of some unknown liquid overflowing into the darkness of the basement. I knew for sure that the father hadn't mentioned any flooding, so it would be way too random for that. So I stood there, watching in frozen curiosity as the puddle then suddenly rippled. And I realized the abominable truth. It wasn't water. It was a puddle of saliva. And something was drooling into it from the dark. A wretched chuckle emanated from the horrid void beyond the step, and it cemented me even further into place. It was a wet chortle and positively evil. "How did you like my voices?" the thing said from the dark. "I've been practicing." The epiphany creeped down my spine. It was now talking in Avery's voice. Everything in my body screamed at me to run. I heard the screams, but I couldn't respond, no matter how hard I tried. A pity, though. Almost got you. At this, the most gruesome face peeled back the shadows and revealed itself, along with its unearthly mandibles and small fountain of saliva. My faculties finally came to, and I threw myself into the house and kicked the door closed. In mere seconds, I had the door bolted and chained. Leaning against the door, my chest heaved as I struggled to catch my breath. Just as I felt I was safe, the door shuddered as a terrible blow rocked it. I screamed and ran upstairs to grab Avery. I practically dragged the poor kid out the door and called the police. It wasn't until the operator came on that I realized I was about to report a monster in the house. Thinking quickly, I told them that I heard a burglar in the home. It wasn't long before the police and Avery's parents came home. Nothing was found, even in the basement, but I didn't even care at that point. I just wanted the hell out of that house and away from whatever that thing was. Avery's parents kept glancing at me funny the whole time, probably because they knew I had their basement key. I shoved it into their hands before I hugged Avery and got into my car to drive home. That poor kid has to live in that house with that thing, but there was nothing I could do about it. As long as I am alive, I will never, ever set foot in that house again. And as for basements go, I can't go into them anymore. I just simply can't.